Well, and we'll get to the by-election where family voting was part of that particular issue.
Yeah.
But again, the idea that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is a terrorist organisation as declared in Australia, terrorist organisation as declared last week in the EU, but it is not banned and declared to be such in the UK. They can't even do that.
No, they can't, and we had protests out in the street of London this weekend, pro-Iranian regime demonstrations on the streets of London, and a really big one planned for a couple of weeks' time. Even the European Union, who I've been rather critical of over the decades, even they are prescribing the IRGC, and yet British governments won't do it.
Let's talk about the by-election, one where the Reform Party did come second, but it was the Greens who turned what was, I think, a 13,000 vote lead for Labor into a 40 points win that they ended up having over Reform at 28, Labor at 25. But let's talk about this here, where the practice of family voting. Now, it wasn't members of the Reform Party who saw this happening. It was an independent organisation that saw it in, 60 to 70% of polling booths. They saw a bunch of people walk in and the bloke tells them what to do.
Yeah, that's right. And this has been going on. I've been railing about this now for many, many years. And all I've ever had is sour grapes from Nigel Farage. The Labour Party never wanted to do anything about it because it was in their favour. The Tory Party took the view they weren't going to win in the big cities, and they thought, we won't worry about it. Literally, men marching women and, in some cases, children over 18 into the polling booth, overseeing their vote, and in most cases photographing it.
Wow.
So they could prove to the mosque that they'd done the right thing. Now, just think, if that's what's happening in the polling booths, what on earth do you think is happening with mass postal voting? Do you think those women in non-English speaking Pakistani households, do you think those women even get to see the ballot paper? I doubt it. And one more thing, we've always had Commonwealth voting rights. So, an Australian living in London can relatively easily get the right to vote in a general election. And that was fine until the age of mass migration, the Boris wave and all the rest of it. And I am as certain as I can be that amongst British-born voters, our candidate won the by-election last week. There were thousands of people with Pakistani passports who, just because they can show they have a settled address in the UK, were voting last Thursday. So the whole democratic system needs fundamental reform. And I've been out campaigning, and I won a big court battle just 2 weeks ago to get the vote back for 4.6 million people who were going to be denied their vote on May the 7th in my local elections this year. And I'm going to fight for the integrity of our democratic system. I don't care how many years it takes. I promise you, I'll win.
Do you think when things are as obvious as this, it turns people's minds to those structural issues where, look, we understand what a postal vote is supposed to be, and it's for people who are physically unable to turn up. Like, let's be honest, it's for people, it's supposed to be for people in nursing homes and hospitals. It's not for, to make sure that everyone falls into line here. But you also know that the downside of pointing out these potential irregularities is that people try to question motives and all the rest of it here. How important is it that you have the receipts to show between now and that general election in a couple of years' time that this has and is happening?
Well, the most bizarre thing, it's been hiding in plain sight for over 2 decades. Yeah. It was in the year 2000 that Tony Blair brought in mass postal voting on demand as opposed to postal voting because you had a reason. And as early as 2004, over a case in Birmingham, again, the Pakistani Kashmiri community, it nearly always is, a High Court judge in 2004 said in the particular case he was looking at, these were the actions of a banana republic. It's been hiding in plain sight for 2 decades. I've been the sole complainant. The difference this time is an independent monitoring group have come out with the report. So these things are disgraceful. And I agree with you. I mean, look, you know, by all means have a postal vote if you're 97 in a wheelchair or you're working abroad, but it should never be more than about 2% of the total turnout. In last year's local elections across England, 34% of the vote was postal vote. And that means also people are voting weeks ahead of the conclusion of the campaign. They're not seeing all the arguments playing out.
Yeah, good point. And as you pointed out as well, you know, this doesn't exist in France. Neither of us want to sign up to the way they do everything, but they're able to get a big number, big count, big result, all pretty quickly. Why? Because they don't have this sort of echo that goes around. Nigel, thank you very much, mate. Again, I want everyone to go and find your YouTube page because there's lots of events that are happening that Reform does up and down the country. Thank you, mate.